The city of Kale dripped with rain and neon light, its streets alive with shadows and broken dreams. A young human named Evan walked through the dark alleyways, his old jacket soaked and heavy, his shoes splashing in puddles of glowing water. He had no home, no family, no future, only the hope that tomorrow would somehow be kinder than today. Above him, giant screens flickered with alien languages, showing faces of leaders and bounty heads, but Evan didn't care. He was just trying to find a dry place to rest, a corner where the cold wouldn't bite so deep. Then he heard it, a soft, weak cry. At first, he thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then he heard it again, a trembling voice whispering for help. He followed the sound down a narrow passage where the rain fell harder, like silver knives cutting through the air. There, lying against a wall of rusted metal, was a girl. Her skin glowed faintly with blue light, her long white hair tangled and wet, a black cloth tied over her eyes. She was not human. Evan could tell instantly. Her beauty was unearthly, fragile like glass yet alive with quiet power. Evan hesitated, looking around the alley. No one else was there, only the sound of thunder and distant engines. He stepped closer and knelt beside her. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked softly. The girl tried to speak but coughed, her voice breaking. "Please, the healer. I need the healer." Her hand trembled as she reached toward him, fingers cold and glowing faintly blue. Without thinking, Evan took her hand. It felt strange, warm at first, then pulsing with soft energy, like a heartbeat of light. He didn't know who she was or why she was here, but he couldn't leave her to die in the rain. He lifted her gently into his arms, surprised by how light she was. The rain poured harder, washing the streets clean, but making every step slippery and slow. He whispered, "Hold on, I'll find someone to help." Her head rested against his shoulder, and for a brief moment, she smiled through her pain. As Evan carried her through the winding streets, the city seemed to come alive. Mechanical drones buzzed overhead, their red eyes scanning the ground below. Evan kept to the shadows, hiding behind old vending machines and broken cars. He had been invisible to the world for years, but now, somehow, he felt seen. He didn't understand why this alien girl mattered, but deep down, something told him she did. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed from the sky. A drone stopped above the alley where the girl had been lying. Its lens zoomed in, scanning the ground, and a mechanical voice said, "Target located. The Heiress." The word sent a chill down Evan's spine, but he didn't hear it. He was already far ahead. He just wanted to save her, to do something good for once in his life. The girl stirred again, whispering softly, "Why? Why are you helping me?" Evan didn't answer at first. He just kept walking, his boots splashing in the rain. Finally, he said, "Because no one helped me when I needed it." She turned her face slightly toward him, her lips trembling. "You don't understand. They'll kill you too." Evan gave a small smile. "Then we better keep moving." Lightning flashed above the city towers, and for an instant, he saw their reflections, two small figures against a world of chaos. The girl's hand clutched at his shirt, as if afraid he might vanish. Her breathing was weak but steady, and the faint glow of her skin lit the path ahead. In the distance, sirens wailed, ships flew across the horizon, and the rain turned into a storm. Still, Evan kept going, one step after another, through pain, cold, and exhaustion. He didn't know her name, or her world, or why her touch made his chest feel alive again. He just knew that leaving her there would have been the same as giving up on his own soul. Somewhere deep in the city, a healer might exist, and he was determined to find one. He passed broken signs, old temples, and flickering lights, his breath fogging in the cold air. The girl whispered one last time before losing consciousness. "You remind me of him." Evan frowned. "Of who?" But she didn't reply, her head falling limp against his shoulder. He looked up at the sky, the rain falling harder now. He didn't notice the red glow of the drones watching from above. Their scanners locked onto his position, their metallic voices whispering again. Subject found. Heiress secured. Evan walked on, unaware of the storm he had just stepped into, unaware that his single act of kindness had already begun to change the fate of galaxies. The rain never stopped. It fell like endless silver threads from a broken sky, turning the city of Kale into a maze of glowing rivers. Evan kept walking, carrying the blind alien girl close, his muscles burning but his heart refusing to quit. The neon signs flickered across his face as he crossed the market bridge, the girl's faint glow mixing with the light around him. He had no plan, no destination, only the promise he made to himself, to keep her alive. The lower sectors of the city smelled of oil, smoke, and forgotten dreams. Machines hissed from the walls, steam drifted like ghosts, and eyes watched from every dark corner. Evan knew these streets. He grew up here, surviving off scraps and quick lies. But this time he wasn't hiding for himself. He was protecting someone else, someone who seemed to shine even in darkness. Behind him, the sound of engines echoed, sharp and mechanical. Drones hovered above rooftops, scanning for heat signatures, their red beams slicing through the rain. Evan ducked under an old transport tunnel, his breathing rough, the girl's weak heartbeat thudding against his chest. He whispered, "Stay awake, please," but she didn't answer, her skin dimming to a soft gray light. He found an old shelter built from broken steel sheets. Inside, flickering lamps struggled to stay alive, and the floor was covered in dust and metal shavings. Evan laid her down carefully, taking off his wet jacket to cover her shoulders. He could see bruises on her arms, thin metallic lines glowing faintly beneath her skin, like veins of starlight. "Who are you?" he murmured, staring at her peaceful face, but the only sound was the steady rhythm of rain above. Minutes turned into hours. Evan searched the shelves, found a bottle of clean water, and gently poured a few drops over her lips. She stirred, her lips parting slightly, whispering something in a language he couldn't understand. Then she said faintly, "If they find me, you must run." Evan shook his head. "Not leaving you, not now." Outside, the thunder cracked, and the ground shook as a patrol ship flew overhead. A mechanical voice boomed. "All civilians remain indoors, level 3 lockdown initiated." Evan cursed under his breath. The city was closing down, sealing exits one by one. He grabbed his small backpack, slung it over his shoulder, and lifted the girl again. Her hand caught his sleeve. "Why?" she asked weakly. "Why do you risk your life for me?" Evan looked down at her, his expression soft but firm. "Because you asked for help, and no one else did." They slipped through the old sewer passages, following the faint hum of power lines above. The tunnels were cold and filled with echoes, the air damp with the smell of rust. Every few meters, Evan stopped to listen. Footsteps, drones, voices, they were everywhere. At one point, a searchlight swept across the tunnel mouth, forcing him to hold his breath. The girl's hand squeezed his arm as if sensing the danger without sight. When the light faded, he exhaled and moved again, whispering, "Almost there." Finally, they reached an underground gate marked with strange alien symbols. Evan pressed his hand against the panel, and to his shock, it reacted, glowing bright. The door slid open with a soft hum, revealing a passage filled with warm light and old machinery. He carried her inside, stepping carefully as the gate closed behind them, sealing the noise of the outside world. Inside the passage, strange carvings lined the walls, stars, galaxies, and what looked like royal crests. The girl stirred again, her voice trembling. "You shouldn't be here. This place belongs to my family." Evan frowned. "Family?" But she didn't reply. She just turned her head away, her face hidden by the wet cloth. He placed her gently on a metal bench, his mind racing with questions. Who was this girl? Why were soldiers calling her Heiress? Why could she open doors that reacted to him too? Suddenly, a metallic sound echoed through the chamber. A small maintenance droid rolled out from the shadows, its red eye scanning them. Evan froze, ready to fight, but the droid beeped softly and projected a blue hologram. It showed a map, an old route leading toward a place labeled the Healer's Tower. Evan stared at it, then looked at the girl. "That's where you wanted to go, right?" She nodded weakly, tears forming beneath her blindfold. "Yes, the healer can remove the mark." He didn't understand what mark she meant, but he didn't ask. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, "Then that's where we'll go." As he lifted her again, the walls flickered, showing old holograms of battles and thrones. Evan felt a strange pull, as if the place itself recognized her, recognized them both. Outside, thunder roared again, and the sound of engines grew louder. In the distance, a commander's voice echoed through the storm. Find the Heiress, bring her back alive, and kill the human. Evan didn't hear those words. He was already gone, carrying her deeper into the glowing tunnels, each step taking them closer to the healer, and closer to the truth that would change the galaxy forever. The tunnels stretched endlessly beneath the city, glowing faintly with blue symbols that pulsed like veins of light. Evan carried the blind alien girl in silence, his arms trembling with exhaustion, but his heart steady. Every sound echoed, the hum of power, the distant thunder above, and the slow rhythm of her breathing. He didn't know how long they had been walking, but finally, he saw a shimmer of light at the end of the passage. A heavy door stood there, half covered in moss and dust, marked with ancient alien writing. When Evan stepped closer, the symbols brightened, responding to his presence again. He hesitated, glancing at the girl. "This looks like the place," he whispered. The girl nodded faintly. "He lives beyond that door, the last healer of my kind." Her words carried both hope and fear, as if she wasn't sure if meeting him was salvation or something worse. The door opened with a deep sigh, revealing a chamber filled with glowing crystals, steam, and the scent of strange herbs. In the center stood a tall alien figure, old and bent, his skin pale silver and his eyes shining with soft gold light. He turned slowly, his long robe brushing the floor. "You should not have come here, child," he said, his voice low and ancient. Evan frowned. "We need help. She's hurt, and there are people chasing us." The healer's eyes moved to Evan, studying him with quiet intensity. A human, carrying the blind Heiress. Evan blinked. "Heiress? What does that mean?" The old healer ignored the question and reached out his hand, motioning for the girl. She whispered softly, "Please, I need the crystal medicine. The mark is spreading." The healer guided her toward a table of glowing liquid stones and began to chant in a soft alien tongue. Blue light swirled around her body, the crystals pulsing with every heartbeat. Evan stepped back, watching in awe as her wounds began to close and her skin brightened again. But the healer's expression darkened, his voice trembling. "The mark of the syndicate still burns inside her." He looked at Evan with eyes full of sorrow. "Do you know what you've done, human?" Evan shook his head. "I just saved her, that's all." The healer sighed deeply. "That girl carries more danger than you can imagine. She is the daughter of the Voss Empire, the ruling family of the Galactic Syndicate." Evan stared at the healer in disbelief. "You mean she's royalty?" The old man nodded slowly. "And hunted by her own blood." The girl flinched, pulling away from the healer's touch. "Don't tell him," she said weakly. Her voice broke with pain. "He doesn't need to know what I've done." Evan stepped forward. "What are you talking about? What did you do?" The healer looked at her sadly. "She tried to end her father's rule. She stole his codes, his armies, and his ships to stop the war, but she failed." The girl's lips trembled. "I didn't want anyone else to die. I wanted peace." Her hands shook, and faint symbols glowed under her skin like fire. Evan felt a strange weight in his chest, part fear, part admiration. This girl, this blind alien he carried through the storm, was a rebel, a symbol of hope and danger all at once. The healer moved to a crystal console, typing quickly, "They will track her energy signature soon." He turned to Evan. "You must take her and leave before dawn. The Syndicate's hunters will be here before the next cycle." Evan clenched his fists. "You're saying we have to run again?" The healer's golden eyes softened. "If you stay, you die. If she stays, the galaxy burns." Evan looked at the sleeping girl, her face peaceful beneath the blindfold. He remembered her voice, her pain, and the way she had smiled even while bleeding. Something deep inside him refused to abandon her. "Then I'll keep her safe, whatever it takes." The healer bowed slightly. "Your courage is rare, human, but remember, courage can also be a curse." Outside, thunder shook the tunnels again. The healer handed Evan a small metallic sphere, glowing faintly with blue energy. "This will hide your trail for a short time. Use it when the sky turns red," he said. Evan took it, confused but grateful, and lifted the girl back into his arms. Before he could leave, the healer added quietly, "She will change everything, even you." As they stepped toward the tunnel entrance, a cold wind swept through the chamber. Evan turned back to thank the healer, but the old man was gone. Only the glowing crystals remained, dimming one by one. On the table lay a single note written in alien script, its translation flickering in the air. "Run before dawn." It read, "They have found you." A sound echoed from far behind, the heavy thud of metal boots, the hiss of scanners activating. Evan tightened his grip on the girl and whispered, "Hold on, Lyra," saying her name for the first time. He didn't know how he knew it. Maybe she had said it in her sleep. Maybe fate whispered it to him. Either way, it felt right. He ran into the darkness, heart pounding, as the healer's sanctuary crumbled behind them. The city above was waking, the hunt beginning again. And somewhere in the storm, a commander's voice echoed through the comms. "The Heiress lives, bring me the human alive." Evan didn't stop. He didn't look back. He carried her deeper into the shadows, unaware that this night's escape would become the first chapter of a legend whispered across the stars. The sun never truly rose in Kale. It only changed the color of the neon fog from blue to gold. Evan walked through the narrow streets of the lower market, carrying Lyra beneath a long coat, her blindfold still hiding her luminous eyes. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Merchants shouted strange words, and screens flickered with warnings about a fugitive heiress. Every face looked suspicious, every voice felt dangerous, but Evan kept his head down and moved fast. They needed to find a ship, any ship that could take them away from Kale. The healer's message still burned in his mind. Run before dawn. He pushed through the crowd, scanning for anyone who might help. But all he saw were tired faces, hungry traders, and machines that cared only for credits. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay quiet. We're almost safe," and she nodded weakly, her hand clutching his sleeve. In the corner of the market stood a man with metal arms and a kind smile. He waved Evan closer. "You look lost, friend," he said, his voice smooth. Evan hesitated but stepped forward. "I need transport, something that leaves this city today." The man's eyes flicked to Lyra beneath the coat, then back to Evan. "Family?" he asked. Evan nodded. "She's sick, needs treatment off-world." The man sighed. "Hard times, I can help, for a price." Evan handed him a small pouch of coins, everything he had saved from scavenging. The man smiled wider. "Dock 12, 1 hour. I'll make sure no scanners see you." Evan felt relief for the first time in days. "Thank you," he said quietly. The man nodded. "Good hearts are rare here. Human, keep her close." Evan didn't see the tiny red light blinking on the man's wrist, an active comm beacon sending a silent message. They waited near Dock 12, hiding among crates and cargo containers. Lyra's breathing was shallow, her strength fading. "It's all my fault," she whispered. Evan knelt beside her. "Don't say that. None of this is your fault." She turned her head toward his voice. "You don't understand. My father's soldiers never stop. They hunt until nothing's left." Evan placed his hand on hers. "Then we keep running until there's nowhere left to run." But the calm didn't last. From the far end of the dock, metallic footsteps echoed, slow, steady, and organized. The sound of pulse rifles charging filled the air, red lights cutting through the fog. Evan's blood ran cold. "They found us," he whispered. Lyra sat up, trembling. "It's the Syndicate." Figures emerged from the mist, soldiers in black armor with glowing red visors, their leader shouting, "By order of the Voss Empire, surrender the Heiress." Evan's mind raced. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground, his hands shaking but ready. The soldiers closed in. "Step aside, human, and you may live," one said coldly. Evan took a breath and stepped in front of Lyra. "You'll have to go through me first." The first soldier lunged forward, his rifle swinging like a club. Evan ducked, striking him across the helmet, sparks flying. Another soldier grabbed Evan by the arm and slammed him against a crate, pain shooting through his body. He fought back desperately, raw human strength against machines built for war. But he was outnumbered, surrounded, bleeding, and still refusing to fall. Lyra screamed his name, her voice echoing through the dock like a song of sorrow and fury. In that instant, the ground beneath them began to hum. The soldiers froze as blue energy crackled through the air, the lights flickering wildly. Evan looked at her. Her blindfold had slipped, revealing glowing eyes filled with fire and light. Her voice changed, deeper, stronger, ancient. "Enough," she whispered. The energy exploded outward, a wave of blinding light that tore through the fog. Every soldier was thrown backward, their armor sparking and shorting out. Evan fell to his knees, shielding his eyes from the glare. When it cleared, the dock was silent, smoke rising from twisted metal. Lyra stood in the center, glowing like a living star, her hair floating as if weightless. She looked at her trembling hands, horror on her face. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I can't control it." Evan pushed himself up, staring in awe. "What are you?" Her voice broke. "I told you. I'm the daughter of the Galactic Syndicate." She looked at the fallen soldiers, her tears glowing faintly. "And my power is the reason they fear me." Evan stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Then we use that power to survive." Lyra turned toward him, her glowing eyes dimming again. "You don't understand. If I lose control, I could destroy everything." He smiled softly. "Then I'll make sure you never lose it." She let out a shaky breath. "You're strange, human." Evan laughed quietly. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Far above them, the sky cracked with thunder as new ships descended into the city. More syndicate troops were coming, drawn by the energy burst. Evan grabbed her hand. "We need to move now." They ran through the burning docks, past sparks, smoke, and twisted metal. Behind them, the traitor with the metal arms watched from a distance, guilt flickering in his mechanical eyes. He whispered into his calm, "The Heiress is alive, and she's not alone." Evan and Lyra disappeared into the shadows once more. The storm raged around them, lightning flashing across the metal skyline. And somewhere deep inside, Lyra's heart began to change, because for the first time, someone wasn't using her power, someone was protecting her. The fugitive Heiress and the homeless human had just become the galaxy's most hunted pair, and their story had only begun. The smoke from the market still clung to the sky, turning the stars into faint red ghosts. Evan and Lyra moved through the outskirts of the city, climbing through broken train tunnels and abandoned cargo lines. The world above them buzzed with syndicate patrols, lights flashing across the metal landscape. Evan carried her again when she grew weak, the glow of her skin lighting their path like a living lantern. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Only the sound of rain and their footsteps echoed in the silence. Finally, they reached the wastelands beyond the city walls. Old factories and wind-torn towers stood like bones against the stormy horizon. Evan found an old shuttle hangar hidden beneath a collapsed bridge, the roof half gone, the air cold and dusty. He laid Lyra down on a blanket made from his jacket and sat beside her, breathing hard. "We can rest here," he said quietly, "for now." Lyra turned her face toward him, the blindfold loose around her eyes. "You shouldn't have stayed, Evan." He looked at her, confused. "Stayed? You should have run when you had the chance," she said softly. "My life only brings death to others." Evan shook his head. "Maybe, but I don't leave people behind." For a moment, she was silent, her fingers tracing the metal floor. "You sound like someone I once knew." Lightning flashed, revealing the broken control panels and the rusted sign that still read Voss Freight Lines. Evan frowned. "Voss," he said slowly. "Same as your family name." Lyra nodded. "This was one of my father's old routes, before he turned the syndicate into an empire." Her voice carried both anger and sorrow. "He used to say the galaxy could only be ruled by fear." Evan stared at her. "And you wanted to prove him wrong." She smiled faintly. "Yes, I wanted peace, but peace is weakness to him." She pulled the blindfold from her eyes, revealing the faint silver glow behind them. "When I refused to command his armies, he marked me as a traitor." She showed him the glowing scar on her wrist, the same one he had seen before. "It's not just a mark," she whispered. "It's a tracker, a chain that binds me to his will." Evan leaned closer. "So we'll find a way to break it." Lyra looked at him, half amused, half heartbroken. "You talk as if you can fight an empire." Evan smiled faintly. "I've fought hunger, storms, and life itself. How hard can an empire be?" The faintest laugh escaped her lips, the first he had ever heard from her. It sounded fragile, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Then she grew serious again. "You don't understand, Evan. The Syndicate doesn't just control planets, it controls minds." She looked up toward the cracked ceiling. "Every system in this sector runs on their codes. Every city breathes their air." Evan followed her gaze. Then we stop running. We fight smart. Her brow furrowed. Fight. He nodded. Your power isn't a curse, Lyra. It's a weapon, and maybe the galaxy needs it. She shook her head. That power kills everything I love. Her voice trembled. The last time I lost control, a whole colony burned. Evan took her hand gently. Then let me help you control it. Lyra hesitated. Why would you risk yourself for me? Because you gave me something back, he said quietly. Purpose. For a long time, they sat in silence, the storm howling outside. Evan began searching through the wrecked hangar for tools and parts, hoping to repair the small shuttle that rested there. Its frame was old but sturdy, built long before the Syndicate's expansion. He worked through the night, fixing wires and power cells, using bits of scrap and hope. Lyra watched him silently, her heart torn between guilt and gratitude. By dawn, the shuttle flickered to life, its engines humming softly. Evan grinned. She still flies. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. You're impossible. He chuckled. That's what people used to tell me before they stopped caring. She stood slowly, her legs trembling. If we leave Kale, my father will know. Evan replied. Then he'll know we're not afraid. They boarded the shuttle, the rain sliding off the cracked windshield like tears. Evan strapped her in and sat at the controls, hands shaking slightly as he powered up the thrusters. Ready? He asked. Lyra took a deep breath. As ready as I can be. The ship lifted slowly, engines roaring against the storm, breaking free from the weight of the city below. Lightning danced across the sky as they climbed higher and higher, the neon lights of Kale fading into the mist. For a moment, everything was quiet. Lyra looked out the window with her sightless eyes. It's strange, she whispered. I can't see it, but I can feel the stars calling. Evan smiled softly. Then let's go answer them. But just as peace began to return, the ship's console flashed red, alarms screaming. A transmission cut through the static, a cold, familiar voice. Bring her back alive, the voice ordered, and kill the human. Lyra's face went pale, her hands gripping the seat. It's him. Evan stared at the blinking radar, 3 enemy signals closing fast. He muttered under his breath. Guess the galaxy's not done with us yet. He tightened his grip on the controls as the first blast hit the shuttle, shaking them violently. Lyra reached for his hand, her voice steady despite the fear. Then we fight together. Evan nodded once, his eyes burning with determination. Together. The stars blurred as the shuttle dived into the clouds, chased by fire and lightning. Behind them, the Syndicate's ships roared closer, the hunter now becoming the hunted. And in that chaos of storm and starlight, the legend of the human and the blind Heiress began to awaken, one heartbeat at a time. The shuttle sliced through the night like a wounded bird, smoke trailing behind it as the wasteland stretched below. Evan gripped the controls tightly, his eyes locked on the blinking radar, 3 red signals closing in fast. Lyra sat beside him, her hands glowing faintly blue, trying to hold the shields together with what little strength she had left. The engine screamed, sparks flying from the console, alarms flashing across the cracked glass. Hold on. Evan shouted over the roar, twisting the ship hard to the right. Laser fire streaked past them, bright red lines cutting through the dark clouds. One beam grazed the wing, ripping metal apart, the ship shuddering violently. Lyra's voice trembled but steady. They're trying to disable us, not destroy. My father wants me alive. Evan gritted his teeth. Then he's going to be disappointed. He dove the shuttle lower, skimming across the lightning-lit storm. Below, ancient towers rose from the dust, relics of forgotten wars, their lights still flickering after centuries. The enemy ships followed, their engines howling like predators. Evan's heart pounded, sweat mixing with the smoke, his body moving on instinct. Lyra whispered, her voice distant. There's a tower ahead, a beacon of the old world. We can hide there. Evan nodded. Show me the way. She pressed her palm against the console, and suddenly the radar shifted, showing a faint signal deep in the wasteland. A massive structure appeared through the storm, half buried in sand but still alive with blue light. It looked like a temple built for the stars, its surface engraved with symbols that pulsed like breathing. That's it, Lyra said softly. The last refuge of my mother's people. Evan stared in awe. Then let's make it home. Another blast hit the shuttle, fire erupting from the rear engine. Evan fought the controls, teeth clenched. We're going down. The ship spun wildly, crashing through clouds and debris. Lyra reached out with both hands, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. A shimmering barrier of energy formed around them, slowing the fall. They hit the ground hard but alive, the shuttle sliding to a halt in the shadow of the ancient tower. For a moment, everything was silent except the crackle of fire. Evan coughed, pulling himself free from the wreckage. You okay? Lyra nodded weakly, blood on her lip, but her eyes still burning with light. I'll survive. He smiled faintly. Tougher than you look. She smirked. You have no idea. The moment of calm broke as the sound of engines filled the air again. 3 Syndicate fighters descended through the clouds, their red searchlights sweeping the ruins. Evan grabbed a blaster from the wreckage, checked the charge, and stood tall. Lyra tried to rise but stumbled, her legs shaking. There's no point fighting, we can't win against ships. Evan looked at her, his voice firm. Then we make them regret chasing us. The first ship fired, the beam tearing through the sand. Evan rolled aside, firing back, the shot hitting one engine, sending it spiraling into the ground. The explosion lit the wasteland in blue fire, the shockwave knocking both of them down. Lyra screamed, her power flaring uncontrolled, waves of energy bursting from her hands. The remaining ships were thrown off balance, their systems flickering as if the sky itself rebelled. Evan shielded her, shouting over the noise. Focus, Lyra, control it. She gasped, her hands trembling. I'm trying, I can't stop it. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. You can, look at me, breathe, not them me. Her power stabilized, the light shifting from wild blue to soft silver, calm and precise. The energy wrapped around the fallen shuttle, forming a shimmering dome that deflected incoming fire. Evan stared in awe. You did it. Lyra whispered. We did it. A deep rumble filled the air, heavier than thunder. From the clouds above descended a massive shadow, the Syndicate dreadnought, her father's flagship. Its presence darkened the sky, lightning reflecting off its metallic hull. Lyra froze, whispering, he's here. A booming voice echoed from loudspeakers across the wasteland. Daughter, surrender now, and I may spare the human. Evan clenched his jaw, raising the blaster again. Not happening. Lyra stepped forward, tears mixing with rain. He'll destroy everything just to catch me. Evan took her hand. Then we stop him here. She shook her head. You don't understand. That ship holds thousands. It's the heart of his empire. He smiled faintly. Then let's break the heart. The dreadnought's cannons powered up, energy glowing red like molten fire. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering ancient words, her energy rising higher and higher. The symbols on the tower walls began to glow, responding to her power. Evan felt the air tremble as gravity itself seemed to bend. The tower lit up completely, sending a beam of silver light straight into the sky. The dreadnought fired. The beam met the blast in midair, exploding in a blinding storm of light and thunder. Evan shielded his face as the world turned white. When the light faded, the dreadnought hovered damaged but not destroyed, its shields flickering. A voice echoed once more, colder than before. You can't win, Lyra. She lifted her chin, her voice steady. Maybe not, but I can make sure you never rule again. Energy surged through her again, brighter than before, her hair floating like strands of light. Evan watched, both terrified and amazed, realizing she was ready to sacrifice everything. He shouted, Lyra, don't do it. She turned toward him, tears glistening. I have to. The beam from the tower grew stronger, reaching for the heart of the dreadnought. And as thunder rolled across the wasteland, Evan stepped forward, refusing to let her face it alone. He grabbed her hand, their energies colliding, human and alien light merging into one. The beam flared once more, a storm of power shaking the heavens. The light swallowed everything. The wasteland, the storm, even the sky above. Evan couldn't see, couldn't breathe, only feel the warmth of Lyra's hand in his. The world trembled like a heartbeat before silence took over. When the glow finally faded, the massive dreadnought that had darkened the heavens was falling, fire tearing through its metal wings. The clouds split apart, rain pouring over the ruins as if the sky itself was crying. Evan opened his eyes slowly, dust and smoke blurring his vision. He was on his knees, his hands shaking, the ground around him glowing faintly silver. Beside him, Lyra knelt motionless, her head bowed, her hair drifting gently in the fading light. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice raw. "Lyra, wake up." She didn't move, her skin pale and cold against the light rain. Panic flooded through him. He shook her shoulders gently. "Come on, don't do this." After a long breath, she stirred, her lips parting. "Evan." He laughed weakly, tears mixing with mud on his face. "You scared me." She smiled faintly. "Did we win?" Evan looked to the sky, where the broken remains of the dreadnought burned like dying stars. "Yeah, I think we did." Lyra's expression softened. "My father's ship." He nodded slowly. "It's gone." Far above, explosions still echoed as the Syndicate fleet scattered in chaos. Without their command ship, their systems failed, their armies panicked. The empire that once ruled through fear was crumbling. Evan helped Lyra stand, her legs weak, her glow dim but alive. She looked around, tears glistening on her cheeks. "All those years, I thought I'd have to destroy myself to stop him." Evan smiled gently. "You didn't destroy yourself, you saved everyone." The tower behind them flickered, its runes dimming as the ancient energy faded. A soft hum filled the air, and a hologram appeared before them, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. Lyra froze, whispering, "Mother." The hologram smiled, her voice gentle and full of love. "My child, you carried the light when I could not." Evan stepped back, or written across his face. The image looked at him too. "And you, human, you remind this galaxy what courage truly means." Her voice echoed softly. "The bond between your two worlds will shape the stars to come." Then the image faded into dust, leaving silence behind. Lyra stood quietly, her hand pressed to her heart. "I thought I'd lost her forever." Evan placed his hand over hers. "You never lose the ones who guide you." For a long time, they stood there, surrounded by the gentle hum of the dying storm. Then Lyra turned to him, a faint smile returning to her face. "What will you do now, Evan?" He shrugged, glancing at the wreckage of the shuttle. "I was thinking maybe start a new life." She tilted her head. "Where?" He smiled faintly. "Wherever you go." Lyra blinked, surprised, then laughed softly. "You humans really are impossible." Evan chuckled. "You keep saying that, but you're still here with one." She nodded. "Yes, because impossible things seem to follow you." Above them, the first true sunrise in years broke through the storm, casting light across the endless wasteland. The warmth touched her face, and for the first time since her blindness, Lyra smiled. Not because she could see, but because she felt everything. Moments later, a small ship descended from the clouds, a rebel transport responding to the energy beacon. Its pilot stepped out, a young alien woman with tattoos of starlight across her arms. "We've been hearing stories," she said. "A human and a blind heiress who defied the Syndicate." Evan grinned. "Stories travel fast." The pilot nodded. "Faster than light when hope's involved." She looked at Lyra. "The galaxy's ready for something new." Lyra turned to Evan, her hand finding his. "Maybe it's time humans showed them what light really means." They boarded the ship together, the engines roaring to life. As the vessel rose, the ruined wasteland grew smaller. The broken tower glowing one last time before fading into memory. Below them, the Syndicate's fallen fleet burned quietly, a graveyard of tyranny. Above them, stars stretched across the black sky, endless and free. Lyra leaned her head against Evan's shoulder, whispering, "You gave me sight again, not with eyes, but with heart." He smiled softly, watching the stars. "And you gave me something to believe in." The ship vanished into the horizon, leaving trails of silver light behind. Across the galaxy, whispers spread through the colonies, through hidden cities and rebel worlds. They spoke of the human who carried the blind heiress through the storm, who faced an empire and never bowed. They spoke of the girl who turned her curse into hope, and the man who helped her see beyond fear. Together, they became a legend, the story of the human who changed the galaxy. And somewhere, beneath the endless stars, two lights traveled side by side, guiding a galaxy toward dawn.